Welcome to the next episode of the Thought Leader Way, a knowledge series where I bring experts from industry and academia to share their perspectives on the future of marketing. In today's episode, we delve into the topic of personalization at scale, AI's role in tailored marketing. So join us as we unravel the power of AI in crafting personalized marketing experiences that resonate with each individual customer with my guest, Professor Susan Jones. So Professor Jones is a faculty at the Ferris State University. She's a professor of marketing there and the principal of Susan K. Jones and Associates, a consultancy in direct and digital marketing, advertising, and public relations. Professor Jones is the author and editor of more than 35 books. She has won numerous awards both as a practitioner and as an academic. She serves as the trustee of the Ferris Foundation and chairs the foundation's Gifts and Grants Committee. So let's dive in and see what perspectives she has to share on this topic. So welcome, Professor Jones. It's really nice to have you with us here today. And I'm excited to explore, how AI is going to contribute in the future of marketing. And specifically what we are talking today is how do you take personalization at scale? So welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you so much. It's great to be here. And this is a very exciting, sometimes intimidating field to look at, but I think it's also fun. So let's go for it.
Absolutely. Can't agree more on that. So Professor, in your experience, in what ways do you see AI-driven personalization actually enhance the customer experience and contribute more towards establishing the brand as a thought leader in their segment?
Yes, well, that's the exciting part here is I think we're getting into hyper personalization, not just personalization. So in the recent past, we would cluster people that had things in common and send a group of people something based on maybe one thing they had in common. But now we can hyper personalize, so everybody is really getting their own communication, their own information, and it's in real time. There's no human interaction needed. It's all set up, and the AI helps make it happen in real time. So Amazon Personalized, which is something that Amazon uses, the exciting thing to me is now I'm sure it's at a rather substantial cost, but they are offering their product for other companies to use, even much smaller companies. And of course, right now, Amazon's being sued by the US government, so they need to do anything they can to try to make it look like they're democratizing things, but they are offering that to clients, what they do on their site, which is very, very hyper-personalized.
That's so true. I think the personalization at scale and hyper personalization is what is going to be a game changer. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, the McKinsey podcast, and I think the experts in that also were talking about how in the banking and financial services industry as well as healthcare, Gen AI could really get into levels of personalization and offering solutions which we haven't even thought of before. So I think
yes, I have a couple other things to talk about, which I think are very exciting. We used to use something, I think it was called a dial scan in focus groups, where a person would sit there and they'd look at a video or a proposition. They were given a dial and it would start at 5. And if they liked what they saw, they'd scale it up to 10. If they didn't like it, they'd scale it down to 1.
Okay.
But of course, that's very subjective. And now we're going to be looking at facial recognition. So what people do is always more important than what they say. So in a focus group, with permission, I hope that they'll ask people for permission. Yeah. They'll be able to do facial recognition. And I thought it was interesting. Gartner research said that by 2024, AI identification of emotions will influence more than half of the online ads that you see. So we are really moving in that direction. Yes. We'll talk in a little bit about privacy concerns, but yes. For us as marketers, this is very exciting.
So true, so true. So, Professor, you spoke about Amazon. You spoke about what Gartner is predicting. Would you be able to share an example of any brand that has really excelled in delivering that personalized
Sure.
campaigns to AI?
Well, I already mentioned Amazon. Amazon is able to personalize not only the products that they're showing you, but the way they show them and what order. And of course, if you're hooked up to Amazon's Alexa, she is, to my mind, she comes on too often and says, "Susan, I think you need more toothpaste." Calls me by name. Oh, there she is. She thinks I'm talking to her. She's right over here.
Real
Yes.
example.
Right. So really, Netflix has been doing this for a very long time, but it's not just saying, okay, you watched this, so now you might want to watch something else. The little calling cards that you see on your Netflix might be different based on who you are. So for men that are interested in war movies, they might show a war scene. But for women, they might show the romantic scene if that's a person that likes that kind of show. So they're very much personalizing what comes up on Netflix. Of course, they will show you their top 10, whether you're necessarily interested in that or not, but they have lots of selections for you. And I really think about this in terms of what we had to do in the past or what we couldn't do in the past. One of my favorite stories about creativity is a singer named Neil Sedaka. I don't know if you know him in India or not.
No.
Back in the 50s, he was a trained professional musician as well as a rock star. He analyzed all the top 10 songs or the top 20 songs on the hit parade. And as a trained musician, he could do that. He took all the elements that were made for number one hits, and he wrote a song called Old Carol, which brought all that together. But of course, today we could do that with AI. AI's written some songs. It's written poetry, you know. It's just going to get smarter, which is a little scary. I attended a video conference last week, and they said the Chat GPI already has an IQ of 155. Which is pretty scary. You know,
Absolutely.
all the tech titans are worried that we should slow down on this because I'm sure Elon Musk is saying, "Oh my gosh, AI is going to be smarter than I am, and I'm just the smartest person ever."
So that's a very interesting aspect that we touched upon there, right? And so, what do you foresee as some of the future challenges as well as opportunities which are available when we have to scale AI from a personalization effort perspective?
Well, the biggest challenge that I see, other than consumers understanding this and being concerned for their privacy, is that companies are looking at this as a way to make more money without thinking about what the customers will want. So I just read that Amazon wants to charge $2.99 a month starting next year for Amazon Prime Video, which has always been included in Amazon Prime. If you don't pay that, then you're going to see commercials. So I do wonder what kind of testing they've done on that to see how customers perceive it, because the first thing that I thought was, I'm going to go and look at all the streaming services I have, and maybe I'll do that $2.99, maybe I won't. I might have to cut something else out. It's just the Wild West right now with all the streaming services, and I think I have way too many. So something like that makes me think about what I'm spending, and the pushback may not be good. And of course, Netflix is continuously raising its prices. They want to put ads in unless you pay, like, I think it's up to almost $20 now per month. But I do something else about Netflix that I neglected to mention, which I think is quite interesting. They are using AI to put together elements, sort of like what Neil Sedaka did, of what makes a popular show. So I'm sure as a creative writer, film or TV writer, that would frustrate people. I know even like 15, 20 years ago, I'm a copywriter originally, that we'd be using AI to write copy or at least edit copy. And I thought, I think that it would make things less personal, less emotional, but AI gets smarter all the time. It's probably going to be very good at that.
Yeah, and I think the latest season of Black Mirror on Netflix, the first episode is actually on that. The hyper personalization, each one story
Yes.
itself gets customized, and you're viewing it as an episode. Your life is being viewed as an episode. So it's quite creepy that way.
Right.
Right.
So another challenge that I'm seeing is, let's use the car industry as an example. And in the US, there is currently no real protection for smart car owners, people that have a car with lots of digital things in it. There's no protection of their privacy at all. So the Mozilla Foundation, which is a protector of privacy, they look into different brands and different industries to see who is doing a bad job of protecting consumer privacy. And they said cars are the worst product category we have ever reviewed. And the worst of the worst is Elon Musk. Yeah, so they had a list of all the, of course, Musk would say, well, this is how we're going to be doing our self-driving cars, and we need all that information. But it's kind of fascinating. Nissan is very transparent about what they collect. Sensitive personal information, including driver's license numbers, immigration status, race, sexual orientation, and health diagnoses. Well, I don't know how they're doing that, but they're saying that they are. And right now, there's nothing to prevent that. Now, another thing about cars, I don't know if BMW did any kind of market research on this, but I suspect they didn't. They announced that they were going to start charging people by the month for things like heated seats. So unless you pay, your seats aren't going to turn on and heat, or automatic high beams and adaptive cruise control. They wanted you to pay for that. So in South Korea, they tested this. They wanted to charge $18 a month for heated seats, and customers rebelled. And BMW said, well, we're putting this technology into your car, so the least you can do is pay for it. And people just said that is not happening. So they pulled back from that.
That's not going to work.
Crazy. So then another thing I've been thinking about is right now we have a couple of big strikes that have been going on in the US, and a couple of them are still going on. The United Auto Workers, they are saying they want much more pay, but they also want protection against AI taking over too many jobs. So it's like, have your cake, eat it too. I don't know if that's going to fly in the long term. And one that makes more sense to me, I think, is the writer's strike and the actor's strike. The writers in the US have said that they're afraid that their ideas will be taken. Chat GPT will do the whole script, and they'll just be paid a small amount for an idea. Also, actors have said that AI can take very distinctive voices and replicate them. So one particular actor said they've already done this with my voice and without any pay for me or even any notice that they were doing it. So these are some pretty scary things happening, and not to mention privacy, where people, as they find out, maybe I really don't want my facial recognition going into your database. That seems a little intrusive to me.
Yeah, and I think that's like the other episode I was talking to. It is not just about some of these private players doing it. What about the government? Because the government will be having more access to all this information than anybody else. So how do you look at it from the privacy standpoint there as well? Right, in some of the countries where there are no privacy laws whatsoever as yet.
Right.
And I think that's
so
interesting.
in Europe we have GDPR, And many American companies have to abide by GDPR because they do they sell in Europe. But in the US, and I hope your listeners are interested in what's going on in the US because that's what I know.
Absolutely.
But in the
Absolutely.
US, we have no comprehensive privacy law. But it was interesting on September 13th, 22 of the top tech people in US-based companies met in Washington with lawmakers. Journalists were not allowed in, but there was a picture of them sitting at the table and all the top tech people. And of course, I have come to understand that they really would like a national privacy law because it would make things easier for them. But they are telling Congress people, well, we'll help you write it. I bet you will. But that's challenging because, in the US, we have the very combative relationships between Democrats and Republicans. So Democrat Chuck Schumer said he thinks that AI and related industries or applications should be regulated. But Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, said, well, Chuck Schumer uses a flip phone, so what would he know? He doesn't know anything about this.
In fact, that's the other thing, right? So a lot of the guys who are making the policies and thinking about the future are guys who have no clue about these technologies. And like you said,
right,
right, they're using flip phones, or some may not even be using phones. Their assistants may be doing all the calling for them. And these guys are formulating the policies. So
yes,
I think that's where we need to involve a lot more experts who know the piece, and that's what is more important as we move forward. So on that front, Professor, what advice would you, I know we covered different aspects. We were in the industry, and then we touched some element of the politics, and now if we come back from a marketing standpoint and look at this entire privacy aspect which is there, because there was also one
yes,
study which I saw where, and I think it was a study by Accenture, where it said that over 80% of people were actually willing to trade their data to get personalized services. Right. So
right.
on one side, people are ready to do that, but at the same time, it's also scary on how it could pan out otherwise. So what advice would you give to marketing professionals who are aiming to strike that balance between offering personalization while keeping the user privacy at the core of it?
Well, I think we need to go back to customer-centric marketing and not just jump on the fact that, oh, look at how much revenue we could get if our suckers, customers, would pay $18 a month for heated seats. Now, that is very disrespectful to the customer because a new BMW can cost $100,000 these days. So you're trying to nickel and dime them that way. It's not customer-centric. It's not fair. It's not appropriate. And I drive a BMW, but that made me feel very negative toward my own favorite brand. So I'm going to quote Axiom. Axiom is one of the first companies, if not the first, to have a chief privacy officer, and that was decades ago. So Axiom says data trust is the individual's feeling that your brand will use their data to deliver value and will do so ethically and intelligently. And they will do this with the human touch, not if AI comes across as robotic, then people are, and a lot of chat bots these days, still very robotic. Big data is too big until you tame it. You have to figure out ways to tame it and use it in customer-centric ways. So I think we've got, now this is my bias as a marketer coming through, but I think we have too many CFOs sitting in these meetings and saying, how can I get the last nickel out of people without thinking about the long-term implications, the long-term value of the customer?
Yeah, and all that is eventually going to impact the brand in the long run. And like you rightly pointed out, they do not have that visibility on saying how this is going to impact in the future. Well, they may be saving now, but it's going to cost them in the future. So Professor, we were talking about an interesting use case of Coke, and you said you would share how they've been using this technology and offering that personalized communication. So would love to hear a bit more on that.
Okay. So tell me again what you want to hear. Personalized.
Yeah, so you had that example of Coca-Cola that you wanted to showcase
Oh, yes. Thank
on
you so
how they
much
are
for
using
reminding me.
the
Yeah,
AI.
so this is kind of a fun thing. Coca-Cola, let me do a screen share here. Coca-Cola has developed what they call Y3000. There we go. Let's share that. And they claim that this particular beverage, which comes both in sugar and sugar-free, is developed between artificial intelligence and customers. And I read some of the people who had, I've got one right here. I'll hold it up for you. I just found this in the grocery store, just sitting there on the shelf. So they're selling it
Interesting.
quite readily. They are combining what they say AI says people want to drink with some actual taste testing. And I read one person said it tasted buttery. Another person said they didn't really like it. But it's, to me, this is sort of like what Starbucks does with its fancy drinks. They're not doing it so much for the everyday customer. They're doing it for Instagram. So they want people to talk about it. It's a great PR thing. But this is the site that you go to, and they've got the available flavors and the nutrition. We'll look at that other thing in a minute. But if you go down here, as you know, brands would love to get hold of information about their actual customers, but the retailer's not a fan of that. So in this manner, they can collect email, phone number, date of birth, and agree to receive emails, phone calls, terms of use, and privacy. And I did this, and they will not let you join the list unless you'll either let them text you or call you. So I went ahead and did that. I'm sure I can opt out if I don't like it, but this is their way. I mean, I think that's at the root of this is public relations and gathering data on customers. So the other thing that they have here is, I'm going to stop this share and do another one. And that is the Y3000 cam. And this is a mobile experience. So I can't do it on here, but you can scan the QR code and it'll take you into this Never Land world. I think we can see that a little bit on the other screen. Let me go back to this one. So is it going to go? Maybe I have to stop share and share that. No, I guess that's not going to go, but it's
That's okay. So essentially, it's
okay.
taking us
We'll
to the metaverse.
unshare then. Yeah, but you get the idea, and anybody can do that. Just search Y3000 Coca-Cola. And if you want to do the QR code, you could see it just takes you into this Never Land of pink and blue. So for what that's worth. But, yesterday in class, I had my students talking about influencers in social media. And this is no dumber than anything that they showed me. I said, I thought I looked at dumb videos here. So evidently, Gen Z will watch most anything.
Yeah. And but it's interesting to see in what all ways that brands are trying to experiment with these new technologies which are available out there, and especially brands like in the FMCG space, if they've also started exploring this. I'm sure the ones who are actually in the core tech business, the possibilities are unlimited. So my last question, Prof, would be, what do you see as 2, 3 future trends from an AI's application in marketing that marketers
Well,
should be looking
you and I talked about federated learning, and I think federated learning is a positive thing because it allows us to collect data without personal information. So it compiles data, but it doesn't identify the individual. And I think people will enjoy the benefits of that without having to give up data. And in the future, I think we are going to have to deal with the fact that Chat GPT is getting smarter all the time.
Yes.
It's already about almost as smart as Einstein, so if not smarter. So I really think we're going to be looking at whether it should be given free rein to perhaps outsmart humans, because people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are concerned about this. Yeah. And I can see how they would be, because they're in the trenches with this every day. And then finally, it would be smaller companies figuring out how to use hyper-personalization, as with something like CRM used to be very expensive and people would create their own CRM. Now you can buy it for like $25 a month per seat that uses it. Yeah. And I'm hopeful, and I would imagine that smaller companies will be able to take advantage of these technologies in the relatively near future.
Yeah. So wonderful, Professor. I think we touched upon some really interesting aspects. Thanks for showing us examples also of how companies are using that, and with the possibilities that the federated learning systems which are there. I'm sure the future looks promising, if not so scary for all of us.
Yes. Let's hope it's promising and not scary.
Yes. So thanks once again, Professor, for your time. Really.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.